Hey everyone, how you doing today? My name's Kirsty, aka KBeth Bookish, and these are the best graphic novels slash manga that I have read in 2023. This is part two of my best of 2023. So the previous video was the novels and books that I've read. So if you are interested in that, then please go check that one out. And then this is obviously part two, which is just looking at the graphic novels and the manga. This year has been an amazing year for manga for me. My generic reading has been a bit mid, but my graphic novels and manga reading, I've just had such a good time. I've really reconnected with manga, and I've done a lot of things this year that have made me kind of reconnect with my inner teenager, and it's been really self-soothing and self-healing. And connecting with manga, and like I've been watching a lot more anime again, and it's just felt so good to kind of just fall back into it. And also it's fun as well because since I stopped properly watching anime and reading manga, there's been so much new stuff come out, so it's been really fun not only to go back to my old favourites but to try some new stuff. But these are like my favourites and the best of the year, because obviously, as well as the amazing, there have been a few not great ones. So if you want to check out my worst of the year, there's a couple of manga in there, or at least one. I think there might be one, but there is definitely manga in the worst of the year as well as the best, so if you want to go check those out as well. But we are focusing on the good and the positives and the really cute kitty feet. Hey, I have only actually got one graphic novel to talk about. No, two. I have two. I will remember to check my notes occasionally. So the first of these is the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. This was a reread for me, and then even though I don't own number 5, I do read them on Webtoon, so I have been keeping up to date with those. And this series is just so wholesome, it's so beautiful. I wish 14-year-old me had had access to these, because it would have just... I probably would have had my bi awakening far sooner than I did. I was in my late 20s before I found out that I may be into not just men. And, you know, I feel like these would have really helped with that revelation and understanding who I am as a person. But they're so beautiful. They deal with a lot of really sensitive topics, not only around the LGBT community, but it also has topics of like eating disorders and being trans. It just has so much in here, but it does it in a way that's really loving and supportive, and it's just such a beautiful series. The Incredible Ren bought me the entire series, well, the ones that were currently out, earlier in the year, and I just binged them all. And yeah, this is a sort of between 4.5 and 5-star series for me, and I recommend everyone give it a read. And then the other graphic novel series is Fence by C.S. Picat. These are another one that do have a lot of sort of LGBT in there, and it's becoming more so as the series goes on. Even though the sport is fencing, it is really well explained, and it's like really accessible whether you know about fencing or not. All of the characters are great, and I like that the stakes have been getting higher with each book. And I've read, I think, up to volume 5 now, and I'm just having a really great time with it, and I'm loving how relationships are starting to develop, and I'm loving that it's a genuine slow build. It's not just like they've met and 2 weeks later they're in love. It's a genuine, this is taking place over months, and I'm loving that very sort of subtle build in the relationships, and it's just so much fun. And I just really like the writing. It's great. And yeah, like I said, even if you've never looked at fencing before, you don't need to know about fencing to appreciate the graphic novel and enjoy what it talks about. So I definitely recommend that. The rest of these are all manga, and I'm going to start with the only manga that I read digitally. There were 2 that I loved digitally, actually. I keep saying there's 1, there's 2. The first of these is one that I probably should be embarrassed to say I loved as much as I did, but I'm not. It was so actually really wholesome, and that was Dick Fight Island. Yeah. Woo! See, Ren agrees. I genuinely was shocked at how I was expecting it to be like, what the ridiculous, and it is what the hell ridiculous. Like, the whole premise of this thing is to decide who is going to lead the island. There is a tournament where people from one choice from each clan takes place, and the way it's basically whoever comes last becomes the leader of the island, and it's the most ridiculous what the you can imagine. However, there is a side story in this where we've got one guy, I can't remember his name or anything, but the main guy on the cover, he's been away for a few years to study, and while he's away, he's entered into a relationship with another man. But then the relationship with him and his partner, that was where the really wholesome stuff came in, and then some of the contestants start to catch feelings for each other. And the whole thing, the first book is just kind of like whack-a-doodle-doo, and you're like, what on earth am I reading? But the second one is actually like so super wholesome. And I ended up just like, oh, cute. And you kind of forget how weird the whole concept is by the time you get to the end. But I feel like a lot of people who dislike this series, it's because they don't really get past the first sort of 2 or 3 chapters and they give up before the halfway point, which I understand. But it is one of those that if you can get past the sheer ridiculousness of the concept, it actually ends up being very sweet and very wholesome. I would never put it on my wholesome manga vlog, but it genuinely did end up becoming really sweet. I don't know why. It just was. And then one that I actually did expect to love and did is I Hear the Sunspot by Yuki Firmino. I started this series in February and I just binged the entire thing. I loved it so much. It centres around 2 guys. One is deaf, one is not. And the one who isn't deaf becomes a translator, a transcriber for the deaf character in their university lectures, and that sparks this whole beautiful relationship between them, and we get so many different perspectives from different types of deaf people. So we have the main character who is only deaf in one ear and has struggles with his other one, and he can get by without a hearing aid, but he does use one to help him out. We have a character that was born completely deaf and has never known what it's like to be hearing, and it just has so many different commentaries, and it has like the attitudes not only of hearing people towards the deaf, but it also really shows how sometimes people who are deaf can be very cruel and hateful towards those that are hearing. For example, there is one scene that really hit hard because I have experienced this myself, where the hearing character goes into a deaf community with his boyfriend and is mocked and ridiculed by the deaf people because he can't sign and he's only got very, very basic sign, and they start teasing him with using sign directly in front of him, and obviously he doesn't know what they're saying, so he just thinks that they're laughing and joking with him. And then it's not until it gets pointed out after his partner goes absolutely ape at the others that, you know, it wasn't okay and that that's what was going on. And I have experienced this when I've gone to a deaf club to try and learn sign language, and the attitude that I received, I know it's not all deaf, I know it's not all people, but my experience was that there were a group of girls who were laughing at me for getting things wrong, and rather than helping and supporting, they were mocking. So it was such a powerful story because it does show all of the different sides of good and bad of attitudes towards not only deaf people but also those that are around. But it was just so good. The relationship again was one of those ones where it felt really realistic, and when there were moments where it was like, well, are they going to separate, it was done in such a way where it was like they had genuine reasons for it. It wasn't just, oh, I think you're too good, I'm too good for you, or you're too good for me, or you don't deserve me. It genuinely was doubts and fears as to how it was going to work. But then they communicated, which is brilliant considering it was a difficult thing for them to do. And yet they found a way. And it was just such a good series, and I was so happy to hear that it has continued, because I thought where I read up to was the end, and it wasn't. It has more, and I can't wait to continue. Next up on this one was, I think, my favourite book of the first round of my trying to find the most wholesome manga series, and that was Our Dining Table by Mita Ori. I adore this book so much. A large part of it is because of this little guy right here. He is so adorable, and he just has a way of bringing these two together that is so cute and wholesome. Just checking his name here, Yutaka, who it turns out has got a lot of childhood trauma that has affected the way he is nowadays. And so he keeps himself very isolated. He, especially with meals and eating, he just keeps himself to himself, does not interact with anyone, and he has a lot of insecurities. And then once he meets these two, who are called Minoru and Tane, when he meets these two, they kind of just pull him into their world, and they basically help him to come out of that and to move on from that trauma. And that was this really, really beautiful scene where he wants to tell Minoru about his past, but he struggles to sort of tell him. So what he does is he uses the crayons and paint pictures, and he draws pictures to tell a story about this little boy. And Minoru obviously realizes that it was about him. And yeah, and there's also the side story where Minoru and Tane's mother died not that long ago, and they're still adjusting to the grief of that, and their dad's a little bit of a hopeless case. He's lovely and he means well, but he's also completely helpless. And they create this beautiful family together, and just, it was so cozy. And also, if you're still looking for winter reads, it's set in winter, and they're all wearing snugglies, and they get under like the blankets, and it's just such a beautiful book, especially for this time of year. And it's all about food as well, so it's wholesome. Just please read it. It's so good. It's up there with my absolute favourite manga of the year. I think this actually is my favourite manga of this year. Next up we have Cat Gamer Volume 1. This one was really, really super cute. As someone who is a cat owner, as you can see, and I am also a gamer, this one just spoke to me on so many different levels, especially as there was one point where she was playing a game, the cat then sat on the box and turned it off before she had a chance to save, and not this one, but one of my previous cats did that, and I lost about 7 hours of gaming because of that little turd. And so I felt this, and just the way she's applying gaming logic to raising this cat, I loved it. It was so funny. I had such a good time with it. The drawings of the cat are gorgeous. Sometimes they make the cats look a bit too cartoony in these sort of anime and manga, but this one, it looks realistic. It looks true, genuine, and it was so sweet. There is a bit of a lack of plot, and I know that for some people that's been a bit of a thing where it's like the plot wasn't great and it's kind of like, where's this going? But not side-eyeing anyone in particular.
You adore me still.
However, for me, I just was here for the vibes. I feel like there will be more of a plot coming in, but I just loved it. I had a great time, and I really want to continue this series. A surprising one, and probably the most surprising manga of the year, which I read. If I ask Ren, what am I thinking?
Wait, what? I wasn't paying attention.
The most surprising manga of the year that completely took me by surprise, and I was like, holy crap, I can't believe I actually like this.
Oh, don't put me on the spot. I don't know, I would have said Dick Fight Island, but...
No.
Way of the House Husband?
No! I love Way of the House Husband. I was really dubious about this one, and then I read it and now I love it.
I've got nothing.
Ren is hopeless and can't remember, and that is Sweat and Soap, Volume 1.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought I was going to hate this. I was so dubious about this because it's kind of like, the cover is creepy. Like, that is just creepo pervo central. But I was also really worried because the main character, she has a problem with sweat and sweating, and he has a bit of a thing for the smell of her sweat. And I was like, this is going to be like really disgusting and vulgar and gross. And it wasn't. It was just so refreshing to see that there was no like discrimination against her. It wasn't treated as something gross. His behaviour at times was a little dubious and a little lechery, not gonna lie. But I was really pleasantly surprised. It turned out to be super cute and wholesome. He just was like making sure that he had consent. And when there was one point that he realised that he was like, I haven't asked you if you're actually okay with all this. I'm so sorry. And he didn't like try to brush it off and be like, you know, as a joke or just like move on. He actually stopped, apologised for his behaviour, and then was like, are you comfortable? If you say no, we will stop. And I was like, what? We stan. And I ended up really loving them. I really, really love their relationship. And again, I'm not really sure how this is going to go over a 9-book series, but especially as it was meant to only be a standalone, and the first chapter alone can be read as an entire thing. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen for future volumes for it to go over like a 9 or 10 volume series. But certainly for now, I am in love and I really want to continue it. And I had a surprisingly great time with this. Next up, we have one that is for the nerds and geeks trying to find romance, and that is Watakoi Love is Hard for Otaku. We have her, Narumi, who is an otaku in that she loves boys loves comics, she loves cosplay and anime and manga. And then we have Nifuji, him, and he is a video game nerd. And basically it's a case of she's been dumped by every boyfriend that she's ever had once they find out just how bad her otaku is, and he's never really been interested in relationships in the first place. But they end up dating, and they very quickly realise that their two brands of otaku merge really, really well together. And it was just so sweet and lovely, the way that they just subtly support each other and fill in the slots that are missing. And there's also like the side couple as well who they work with and are friends with, and I just loved all of the dynamics in here. I loved all of the characters. I had a really good time. I had a good laugh. I love how he's just pretty much stoic all the time unless it revolves around the game, and then suddenly this monster is unleashed, whereas she's very much open and very exuberant with her emotions. And it's just really, really fun to watch their dynamic, and I genuinely can't wait to continue this because it just looks so fun. I also am aware there's now an anime out, but I'm deliberately not going to watch that until I finish the series because I don't want to be spoiled, but also I've just been having such a fun time with this, and even now I'm holding this and I want to start reading it again. So yeah, I can't really talk about best manga of the year without talking about best manga overall in my life. And I mean, if you get this one wrong, I'm throwing it at you. My best manga overall currently.
Well, I would say My Hero, but I think I'm wrong. Whew. Otherwise, I was like, oh shit, I gotta go book my plane back to Australia.
But of course, it is My Hero Academia. I talk about this all the time. I have my own TBR game based around My Hero Academia. That is how much I love it. And even though the anime I have watched and I am completely up to date with, the manga I've read it online and I'm up to date with, but I don't own many of the volumes, so I've been getting them as and when I can. And so it was the first time I've actually physically read volume 17, and this is my favourite arc in the series anyway, the Shie Hisaikai raid arc. They rescue this little girl from some Yakuza who have been treating her like crap, and this is like the penultimate volume of that arc. So it's like the most emotionally charged, it's the most stakes are high, and in the series I love Deku in that arc. In this, Mirio, this guy here, Lemillion, he took my heart and soul. And suddenly I'm way more invested in his character, and I was just blown away by him in this. I think it's because his art style is drawn a bit differently to everybody else's. He's kind of got that sort of cartoony, like Tintin style artwork compared to everybody else. And so in the anime, that kind of makes him a bit more cartoonified. And I don't know, maybe the voice actor is just slightly not quite right for me. But there was something, when I watch it on the anime, I'm just not, he doesn't come on my radar as much. But reading him, oh, that boy has just tortured my soul. But yeah, this whole thing had me in tears. I mean, I'm currently reading the very final arc, and that is obliterating me too. But I just don't feel, for raw emotion, I don't feel any is going to hit me as hard as this one did. And yeah, it was just perfection, and I loved it. So yeah, as always, my hero always makes it onto this list, and I can't see that slowing down anytime soon. Next up, we have another one that took me by surprise. And this one for a different reason. It wasn't because I thought it was going to be bad or anything like that, but because it was set in high school and revolves around high schoolers, which, as you know, I'm straying away from more. But for some reason with manga, I'm still kind of enjoying it. But this one is Imakoi, Now I'm in Love. This is basically following two high school students. They've just gone into high school, and she decides that after missing out on love the first time round with her first crush because she was too scared to say anything, the next time she had a crush on someone, she was just going to come out to them no matter what. She then is rescued by this guy from a pervert on the train, and she instantly kind of falls for him, and she asks him out. And to her absolute shock horror, he says yes to going out with her. And it's just really sweet and really wholesome, and I was surprised. I mean, I was kind of attracted to him, not gonna lie. I love the art in this in general. I feel like it's really beautifully drawn. Again, yeah, there are some moments where you get a bit frustrated but then you remember they're teenagers and they're not always great at the whole communicating thing. But I just really love it, and I like that he's quite intuitive. And so there's, like, in the second volume, there's one moment where his ex turns up and she goes a little bit quiet, and he immediately is just like, right, okay, we're going to talk about this, and we're going to be healthy and mature about this, because I don't want you to think that you're inferior to her and things like this. And then, like, his best friend is also just so... We've had a hint that something's happened in the past, and that maybe someone has mistreated him, and his best friend's very defensive and protective of him. So he's immediately like, why do you like him? What are you going to do to him? Do not hurt him, and all of this. And the relationship was just so cute and sweet. And I wasn't expecting to enjoy it anywhere near as much as I did. But again, it's one I'm really looking forward to continuing. And then my final one for the year is one that I read yesterday. I finished it. It's only a duology. I got the first one 2 years ago, and then Ren bought me the second one earlier this year. And so after I got back from my dad's, I got all my books out of storage. So I decided to just read them back to back. And that is My Brother's Husband by Gengoro Tagame. What an emotional ride this took me on. It has themes of looking at attitudes towards LGBT communities. It had grief and coming to terms with a sudden loss. It had brotherly bonds. It had so much in here. It talked about marriage, not just LGBT, but also Yuichi, he and his wife are separated. And it talks about how that's impacting on their daughter and the attitudes of the Japanese towards that. And it was just so beautiful to watch it go from the very start, where Yuichi was very reluctant to bring Mike into their home. He accepted that his brother was gay, but he starts to realise maybe he didn't actually accept it, and maybe he just, as long as it wasn't talked about, it was okay. And then he starts to adjust how he perceives things. And then by the end of the book, the there's a couple of conversations that come up where it kind of mirrors stuff that happens right at the very start, and his thoughts and his feelings are completely flipped, and it was just so beautiful to watch that subtle change. And the daughter, Canna, she's just like immediately like, well, why is it not okay to marry a woman? Why can't two women marry? Why can't two men marry? Like, love is love. What does it matter? And he starts to realise, well, if a child can work this out, why can't I? And at the same time, he also starts to process the fact that, you know, his twin brothers just died, and that becomes more of a thing in the second volume, where he starts to really, it starts to hit him, and we have a couple of moments where I was tearing up. I think the only thing that I kind of was a bit, I understand that the main relationship was about Yuichi's changing mindset and the things around that, but I felt like Mike was a little bit overlooked. There was more that could have been done there with him. I wanted to see more about Mike and his brother and Ryoji? Yes, Ryoji. I would like to have had a couple more snippets into that, and maybe like a little bit more, because I feel like some of Mike's grief was downplayed, and there were moments where where it showed Mike grieving, but I'm like, considering his husband's just died and it's only been about a month, I would have thought there would have been a bit more mixed in there. But I feel like obviously there would have had to have been another volume to really have gone into that, which I would have happily read. But for a duology, I feel like it was beautifully done, and it has definitely got some very hard-hitting moments, some fantastic commentary about attitudes towards the LGBT community. Some people could stand to read this, because I feel like a lot of people could learn some attitude adjustments from this book. And yeah, I just feel like it was a really beautiful story. I loved how it went, and I definitely can see myself rereading this over and over again. So there you have it. That was my sort of top picks of manga for the year. It was a fantastic year for manga. Like I said, there was only one or two that I read that I felt were duds. The rest were all good, great, or incredible. And so I'm very, very happy with that. Let me know in the comments what your favourite picks for manga this year or graphic novels this year were. And if you agree with any of these, or even if maybe I've influenced you to start giving any of these a try. I'll be back soon with another video. I don't yet know what the next video is going to be, because I've still got so many videos to do and I'm so behind on everything. But I will be back soon with another video for you. But in the meantime, I hope you're all good, I hope you're staying safe, and until next time.